Hi guys, welcome back. It's me, I'm back. And as you can see, I'm now in Mexico. So I appreciate y'all's grace in and patience in allowing me to recalibrate to these grids and get settled back here, and do my taxes and rest during my period. And then I got sick for a couple of days, so it's taken me a little bit longer to get a video out than I would have liked, but we're just trusting in the flow of things, and the video will come when it needs to. So here it is, and now we are back to regular scheduled programming now that I'm settled and everything, so you're pleased to know about that. So today we're not going to do a Q&A, but I am going to talk about some recent things that have been popping up. I'm going to talk about, if you stay till the end of the video, at the end we're going to be talking about Russell Brand, the whole allegations against him very quickly. I haven't dove too deep into it, but I'm going to give my first impressions and first response. And then also the whole disclosure of ET bodies, biologics that was revealed before Mexico Congress. I'm going to give my first initial responses to that as well. Again, I've not been following it too closely, but I'm just going to give my first, and my response could change over time as I come across new information, as always. But today we're going to be talking about some reptilian interfacing, or basically like narcissistic soul ties, love addiction type of stuff. So if you're not familiar with the term reptilian interfacing, then just stick around because I will be explaining it all. So yeah, this was on my list of suggested videos that I wanted to talk about, going back all the way to June actually. I had a conversation with one of y'all, who I will keep anonymous, in the DMs after she responded and shared a story with me. She responded to one of my stories in which I reposted a post from Avatara Ananda, who talks a lot about Hiros Gamos, and she's from the Klontics community. Really, really good content creator and field worker. I really enjoy her content. So I'll read you the post to start with. Most ascending men on this planet have to face lust, desire for a harem, and addiction to women, because that's how we humans were enslaved. By severing the male from his own inner female and grooming him to collect females, the male inverted into a predator. Many females are predatory too, because as long as we are split from within, we have to plug into and consume others' energy. There is a lot of shame, guilt, and all sorts of narcissistic defense mechanisms the predator portion of invaded human developed, and facing it all is very challenging. Most men have been historically using, collecting, taking advantage of generationally tormented, broken women, oppressing women under the false king of tyranny ruling our planet instead of protecting them. That's a lot to face. Feminine has to comprehend that if the male polarizes into that predatory nature, he is begging to be put out of his misery and does not know how to do it himself. So loving him, therefore giving him life, is only perpetuating his miserable artificial life. The conniving, cowardly, siphoning, gaslighting, etc. is a plea. Please stop giving me life so I can finally die. Even animals that are too damaged to be healed get more compassion and allowed to pass away. Zarina. So I interpreted it as not literally letting him die, but letting him die to God and be reborn, in the ashes of his own dark night of the soul. So yeah, I posted this because it was very timely, because I was, did a couple of videos talking about the Andrew Tate effect and, his popularity rising amongst, the red pill kind of MGTOW sort of alpha dude kind of manosphere side of the internet, which I think is unfortunate. Like I've said before, I appreciate some of his takes. And I've said that in some of my videos, but I keep on going back and forth over this person every time I hear new information. The most recent information I heard was actually, the last job that I did in London, in the UK, it was a runway show, and there was a Romanian model there, and he said that it's pretty well known that he's basically backed by some of the most dangerous kind of career criminals, organised like mafia bosses in Romania who are actively involved in human trafficking, and they're behind him. So he is complicit. So I haven't seen any evidence, and I will ask that person to send me the evidence so I can look at it myself, but that's kind of where I'm at with that whole Andrew Tate thing. Yeah, so she sent me a message going, so basically I'll summarize, I won't read it out word for word, but she went on a couple of dates with some guy that she met on an app, I guess. I don't know, she didn't actually, no, I think she met him in real person, in real life. So yeah, she, you know, things developed, and then he basically said, listen, I've got mental health issues, I need some time to myself, and he backed away. And then, you know, over the course of time, she got a call from his fiance, who basically told her that she got in contact with her and told him that he had driven her car to come on to the dates with this other girl, used her card to pay for the dates, and basically lives off of her and is cheating on her with a string of women, and he owes her 50 grand. So he's leeching off her. So, I mean, she didn't say directly that she had dumped him, but I assume that she had dumped him because later on in the conversation I posted another thing, it was like some comedy post about, I'll share it, let's react to this. This was one that I shared. Let's talk about this.
What a gorgeous day. It's a broken man.
I can fix you. You have a penis. Take all of my money. Take all of my love. Take all of my energy.
Oh, now I'm broken.
So I thought that was hilarious, and I'm not making fun of women who do this, okay? Because I've been through this process, and that's why we're going to talk about it, okay? It's not shaming anyone who is involved in what is basically, what I said in the conversation, is enabling and self-abuse. That is what you're doing if you're trapped in this type of situation. However, I understand how it happens, okay? Because I've been through it. And we're going to talk about how it happens, we're going to talk about what causes it, and we're going to talk about how to break free from it. But she said that she basically went and got back together with this guy, and she's giving him another chance. So I was just like, okay, this sounds like reptilian interfacing, so send her to my channel. So if you're here and that's you, we're going to get into it, so hopefully we can help you a little bit today. Okay, so basically, why do we keep going back to these broken men? Why do we allow them to financially abuse us? Why do we allow them to emotionally abuse us? Why do we feed so much energy into them? Okay, so this is basically what happens when we have corrupted or inverted union templating. Right here, okay, in the thymus gland, our Christ-Sophia union templating, or our divine masculine, divine feminine, where they're supposed to meet within our light body, has become corrupted somehow, okay? It could be corrupted by trauma, it could be like some kind of sexual abuse, or it could be daddy issues, mummy issues, family of origin issues. So anything that attacks your gender principle, so it causes you to basically have a faulty idea of what a healthy union between a man and a woman is supposed to look like. Some of it can come from societal programming as well, okay? This is why I have so many critiques on my channel about the feminist narrative, okay? Because the feminist narrative has a lot to answer for where this is concerned as well. And I'm not saying that it wasn't needed, okay? There was a very real reason why the feminist movement was needed, because we've been dealing with misogynistic, anti-feminine forces on this planet for eons, okay? Who've targeted our womb energy, who've targeted our life force, who've targeted our pure Sophianic consciousness, okay? Because it goes very deep. It's not just about, our sexual energy or our womb energy or our ability to create life. It's about our intuition and our spiritual oracular gifts that they've also targeted and try to abuse us spiritually. Not just the females on this planet, but everyone on this planet, okay? The dark forces on this planet have targeted and basically, split us off from the feminine principle, the divine feminine current of creation, in order to enslave humanity, okay? In order to fully understand how this has happened, we need to really, really study galactic history, which obviously is a very lengthy process, and there's a lot of, different galactic wars and things that we need to kind of look into to really unpack everything that happened here. And that's part of the work that I'm here doing with my mission. That's part of what this channel is here for. And I'm not the only one doing it. There's many women that I've done my training with who are also trying to basically, just channel some of that lost history so that we can find out exactly how we came to be on this planet in a state of mental and spiritual enslavement, okay? So this goes really, really deep. So if you're trapped in this process where you keep on wanting to try and heal broken men, this is not to shame you, okay? These are really, we're dealing with like ancient warfare, like etheric warfare, spiritual warfare on this planet that's caused us to do this, okay? So, where do I start with this? So it's like the idea that, I understand where it comes from, because if you're a person that has incarnated onto this planet as from another star system, okay, you know that you're a star seed, you know that you're probably a high angelic star seed, and you're here to disrupt things, you're here to kind of bring the balance of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine back into balance on the planet, okay? And that takes many forms, not just healing relationships, but also healing the family template, and also really healing our relationship to the earth and how we interact with the resources on this planet and the systems on this planet. All of that is about divine reunification, okay? You're a person who's here with a very big mission. You may have had past lifetimes as a priestess, okay? Or some kind of powerful oracle, or some kind of powerful light worker, whether that's in male bodies or female bodies, okay? You may resonate with the experience of being highly spiritually targeted, or like not just spiritually targeted, but actually targeted in your life. Like whether it's by people at school, people at college, people at work, even your own parents, even people in your own family who made you feel spiritually targeted. That can create an experience of also when you come across some of these broken men, a lot of the masculines who are our divine counterparts, who we are supposed to be in divine unification with, in divine union with, have also had the experience of it being extremely spiritually targeted. So a lot of the time, that man that we come across that seems very hijacked, and very out of alignment with his higher soul frequency, feels to you, it basically mimics the signature of your true divine masculine counterpart. I hope that this is making sense. So you resonate with the experience of being spiritually targeted, or being like actually targeted, like whether it was he's got mental health issues, or he's got money issues, or he's experiencing housing insecurity or job insecurity, all these things. Like, we find ourselves in these situations where we're magnetized to that type of man because we understand the experience of being spiritually targeted, and we know viscerally, deeply, on a somatic subconscious level, that our true beloved is probably also going to be equally targeted. So we think that this is him. It creates like an intense trauma bond that can oftentimes feel like a a very high level spiritual connection, okay? You might believe that this person is your soulmate. Many people also went through what is a false twin flame or alien love bite, or also known as a reptilian interfacing. And what it is it basically, it's an etheric technology that basically, I mean, I don't want to use too much like spiritual jargon, because I want you to be able to understand what I mean. But basically, like an entity or a thought form, like a demonic parasite, will hook into your emotional body, where you have wounds in your emotional body, and create a cord of attachment that will attach you to that person that has similar wounds as well, and it will create this intense like magnetism. So sometimes, you know, you could say, you know, sometimes there is an initiation in it. There is a high level spiritual initiation which you need to go through, but it's not like, okay, I don't want to say like a blanket statement, but if you're in a relationship where there's any kind of abuse that's happening, whether it's emotional, physical, definitely physical, but you know, emotional can be subtle, and people are sometimes not like consciously aware that they're being emotionally abusive. It might just be unhealthy, toxic patterns that they're unconsciously playing out because they're unhealed. But definitely, if there's physical abuse, if there's financial abuse, if there's psychological abuse, and definitely if there's spiritual abuse going on, that is not your true beloved, okay? That is probably some kind of dark arts training that you're being initiated into, so that you can learn how to clear this out of your field, okay? Now, how do we clear this out of our field? Okay, so I'm specifically trained to clear this out of people's fields using quantum field work, which is basically where I will scan someone's field in a session, and their light body, which is basically like, our bodies are made up of layers, right? Okay, so we have a physical body, we have an emotional body, and we have a mental causal body, okay? Just to simplify things. And these all have like different densities. We can only see the physical body because that's what is within the visible light spectrum of what we can perceive with our five senses. But your emotional body and your mental body, if you're trained or you're naturally clairvoyant, you can also see what's going on within that if you learn to tune in and you learn to read symbols, the symbols that the quantum field communicates in. So I'm trained to read those symbols, and what I see sometimes is basically people's wounds or implants that have attached themselves into people's light bodies, or cords that, you know, connect them to other people. I can see those in somebody's body, or perceive them. It's not always visual. Sometimes it's other senses that will communicate to me what's going on within someone's field, and then we can kind of trace them back and find the origin point where they got implanted. So, you know, there might be, let's say for example, the person that you're in a relationship with is making you feel constantly abandoned. It's because they're hooking into a wound in your emotional body in which you have an abandonment trauma, okay? So we trace it back to the origin wound, and we go into the timelines, and we can see where the origin wound happened, okay? So you might have felt abandoned by a parent, or by an older brother, or even by, like, you know, a first love or something. So it's basically calling you to heal this. Until you heal this wound, you'll continue to attract circumstances and people that will mirror that wound back to you, okay? So let's say somebody's financially abusing you, okay? In this situation, there was very, very severe financial abuse that was taking place, okay? That will be some kind of wound in the gender principle and your beliefs about money, okay? Because money is very, like, gendered. It has a very, like, you know, receiving money is obviously like a feminine, and then being able to provide is masculine. So money is actually not, people are like, oh, money is masculine. It's not as simple as that, you know. Receiving the money is obviously feminine, but if you have a belief that, you know, let's say for example, if you have been programmed to suppress your feminine energy and that your feminine is weak, or that she is, you know, if you've got like maybe some wounds around showing up in a feminine way, if you were taught that the feminine is, you know, you might have programs around, you know, being a gold digger, not being able to receive provision from a man. So instead, you know, if you've got reversals in that way, you might want to give to prove that you're not that. You're like, I'm not, you know, it's kind of like, I'm not like those other girls type of program that you might have running. It could be, you know, there's all kinds of different traumas and beliefs that we have around money that can cause us to become victims of financial abuse. You know, it could be a program where you think that not giving away money and not being generous with your money means that you're a bad person, that you're a selfish person. You know, it could be like a political thing. You know, obviously there's a lot of programming with like left versus right, conservative views versus liberal views, and, you know, capitalist versus communist or socialist views. So if you have any kind of, what's the word, imbalances in that regard, and these imbalances and polarities often are gendered, and affect your masculine and your feminine energy and how they show up, that can cause you to feel like you need to give. And giving can be not just about money, it can be about your energy, like constantly doing for the man, thinking that you need to do things to make him love you because of a lack of understanding of masculine feminine energy and a masculine feminine gender dynamics and what makes a healthy relationship. And I'm not saying that there's one template for that. Every relationship is unique in that regard, okay? My relationship with my partner has actually ebbed and flowed with how we have our masculine feminine, like the polarity in our relationship with how it works, okay? It's changed over time. Right now we're in a space where you know, he's very in his masculine and I'm very in my feminine. But in terms of like emotion, like the emotional side of the relationship, I definitely lead in that regard. Whereas other relationships might be more balanced in that way, especially also when it comes to things like financial sharing. So I'm not saying that there's one template that everybody should follow. It really depends on your specific union that you're in. But I think that, personally, I think that if a woman is, you know, providing 100%, covering a man 100%, that is severe polarity reversal, where he is fully taking the feminine role. And if he's not doing anything in return, okay, with women, like the way that our hormones in our body work, okay, we feel safe when we're provided for because we are naturally vulnerable, we're physically vulnerable, and because we have the ability to get pregnant and create life, we seek that out. Like, we're naturally hardwired to seek out men who can cover us financially. And that's something that has been very suppressed and inverted through a lot of feminist programming. So, you know, a lot of women who've become inverted in their masculine feminine energy have sought to kind of take the masculine's place because of a lack of trust in the masculine. So they think that they will create more safety and more control in the relationship by taking on the masculine role, and that if I just look after him, if I can prove to him how much he needs me and how valuable I am to him and how much I can do for him, then he won't leave me. It's often like it can be like a severe abandonment trauma that you're trying to compensate for by taking on that provider role, and it's like an extreme provider role. So we're back to my point where I was talking about with the hormones in our body. When a woman receives from a man, that naturally starts to produce oxytocin within her body, and then I think it's, okay, don't quote me on this, because I can't remember exactly, but I think it's the estrogen in her body that starts to build. But double check, because I got this from John Gray, and he is the OG on this stuff, on the hormones and how they work in a male body and how in a female body, and how that affects gender dynamics. So have a look at his stuff. But he basically talks about how when the woman is receiving from the man and he's doing things for her, firstly, that builds up the oxytocin in his body, because it makes him feel, that's how men naturally fall in love hormonally, by giving and investing in a woman. Okay, it makes them feel masculine, it makes them feel needed, it makes them feel appreciated, especially if you are able to receive from him with appreciation and become submissive to him, because you naturally start to trust him because of all the things that he's doing for you, all the things that he's providing for you, the way he's showing up in your life and showing you that he values you, and that he wants to be useful in your life, and that he wants to cover you, that he wants to have you. And a lot of women that have not united their masculine and feminine energy and come into sacred unification with themselves find the idea of a man having them or possessing them to be oppressive, oh, you're a possession or something, that you're owned by him. But for me personally, I feel so liberated and so safe by the idea that he's got me, that my man, that I belong to him, I'm his responsibility. It makes me feel safe. It makes me feel and especially I've been traveling the world for many years by myself, and now being traveling, living in a country, especially Southeast Asia is known for being extremely safe for women. I'm not saying Mexico is unsafe, but I don't feel the same level of safety that I did in Southeast Asia in Mexico. So being here with a man's protection and provision makes me feel so free, makes me feel so creative, it makes me feel just so relaxed in my nervous system, that it just makes me naturally submissive, and to me that feels really good, because I trust him, when you start, and because I just generally trust the masculine, because I'm in a place now where I've started to see what is inverted programming, and this is not healthy masculine programming, and what is a healthy masculine program, and see that this is not normal. When you start to think that the unhealthy and programmed expressions of masculinity or male behavior as normal, then of course you're going to distrust the masculine. You're going to think that you have to either become hyper independent, so you only rely on yourself, but still also wanting to be with the masculine, because we are naturally hardwired to be in unification with each other. That's why we're born into these polarized bodies, or you're just gonna try and I'm not saying that this is wrong, but just create your own masculine and feminine within yourself, and become a more extremely balanced person instead of being in unification. And again, that's not wrong. If anything, that is actually a process that you need to go to on the path to actually being in a healthy relationship. And I know that some people are looking at what's happening in the kind of cultural zeitgeist with the whole movement in transgender and gender ideology, with a lot of this non-binary stuff and the theys and the thems. But I just see it as kind of a subset of society that's kind of just alchemizing their own masculine and feminine energy. And if they're allowed to do that without interruption and without unnecessary medical intervention that's being pushed upon them before they're old enough to consent, I believe that will kind of it will sort itself out, will come back into balance. For those of you that have studied the principle of rhythm, and how the pendulum will swing from one way to the other, I feel that will self-correct. So yeah, that's my opinion about that. I think I've shared it in previous videos as well. But where was I going with this? I mean, this topic is so nuanced that it's hard for me to cover everything. So yeah, it can create, it can be a very, very intense trauma bond. That there's an intense trauma bond that has been created with this person that is feeding on your life force, okay? And when we use the term reptilian interfacing, what that means is it's basically an interfacing system, an etheric interfacing system that plugs into the wounds in your light body or the tears in your auric field and feeds on your energy, okay? If you're in a relationship with somebody who is narcissistic and you identify as codependent, you may experience this feeling of being sucked on or being parasited on. So you need to be able to look at the wounds that are being plugged into with the interfacing system, go into all the timelines, look at your childhood trauma. Sometimes it can even be past life trauma, okay? Some of it is definitely coming from the distortion of the priestess lineages, okay? People have talked about this before. Some of it is inverted priestess programming, okay? Because the original priestesses from the temples of Isis, Inanna, Ishtar, the Hieros Gamos, where they would practice Hieros Gamos rites, became very distorted over time, okay? They started, you know, teaching very, very esoteric arts or sciences in which they would initiate the leaders of society or the kingdom and marry them to the land. They were themselves in sacred marriage with the Fae or the spirits of the land, and then they would unite with the priest or the king or the pharaoh or whoever it was in sacred unification, and that would bring about the divine marriage, the alchemical wedding, which is that's talked about in the Sacred Sex Rites of Ishtar by Anne. So, Sacred Sex Rites of Ishtar, Shamanic Sexual Healing and Sex Magic by Annie Dulevut. I hope I haven't butchered her surname, but she talks about how this process happened. Now, I'm not saying that was the original Hieros Gamos rites, okay? That's just something that she's channeled that maybe happened in some of the countries that she studied. She looked at the, you know, texts from the UK, texts from India, texts from Egypt, and I think also ancient Sumeria. And that's what she's decoded. But I'm not saying that was all encompassing what it was. But she was saying that basically the priestesses were married to Fae or the fairies of the land, spirits of the land, and then when they would marry or come into divine unification with the king or the pharaoh, they would activate the crown chakra and give them the divine right to rule. Now, somewhere along the line, these teachings and these temples became distorted, okay? And there are some people within the sacred sexuality and tantric space, red tantra, and you know, y'all know how I feel about that because I've talked about it in previous videos, but that's what they call it, red tantra. I don't agree that it's tantra, but whatever. We'll talk about how, you know, men would go to these temples and be healed by these priestesses, and you know, these were the original brothels, and that is still distorted, okay? That was not originally what happened, that men could just go and be healed by these women in, you know, sacred sex or whatever. But that may have happened at some point, okay? Again, not the highest truth. So I believe that possibly some of the women that are trapped in this kind of interfacing system where they keep on getting into these toxic dynamics with broken men have previous lifetimes where they were engaged in some of these temples and some of these practices which need to be healed, okay? Because and you know, again, like I could see it sometimes with some of the women who are teaching in this space, and who are teaching this as if it was some kind of highest truth, are still playing out the trauma from those lifetimes. Again, I'm not going to name names or anything like that. It's up to those people to recognize it for themselves and then come to, you know, somebody like myself, for example, if you feel called to then go into those lifetimes and heal those timelines, because there's trauma there. okay? That is not true sacred sexuality. It's not true hieros gamos, okay? Hieros gamos is you and your divine beloved, okay? After you've already experienced the unification with the true beloved, which is God. So ultimately that's how we heal. You know, healing can only come from Creator. All of these, you know, techniques that we have of, you know, reading the fields and stuff like that, come from Creator. These gifts come from the Most High. So, you know, developing a relationship with Creator, prayer, I highly recommend journaling and finding an appropriate person who can help you work through some of the layers of this wounding to heal some of this stuff. So yeah, obviously there's more that, you know, this is like such a huge topic that we can talk about from multiple different angles, and I'm happy to do so. If you all want to post your questions in the comment box below, or if you even want to ask me questions privately, you can DM me and do you know, submit a video request, and I can do more videos about this. It could even be a good topic to do a Facebook Live in my women's group, because I haven't done one in ages and we are due one. So, and the last one was really fun. I enjoyed hanging out with y'all, so you know, we could do another one. So if you want to see that, smash that like button, leave me a comment. If you want to see a live on this topic, we can maybe even do like an activation. Okay, so yeah, that's it. That's all I want to say on that topic for now. So very briefly, yeah, so let's talk about the allegations against Russell Brand. Okay, I've not been following it like obsessively or like every detail. I believe that there's a documentary coming out. Multiple women have come forward saying that he raped them, including one who was 16, who he referred to as the child. Now, obviously that's really, really damning. I would first like to just say to, you know, obviously we've got an international audience here. 16 is above the age of consent in the UK, okay? So I know that he's obviously vehemently denied the allegations and said that all the experiences were consensual. So if anybody's jumping on the whole, well, having sex with a 16-year-old is not consensual at all, in the UK it actually is if it was consensual. Now, my initial response, obviously I don't know if he's guilty or innocent because I wasn't there. I don't think any of us can really say categorically, but when I heard it, it didn't surprise me, okay? Because even though I've, you know, said favourable things about Russell Brand before, I'm aware that everybody has light and dark, and he obviously has a very well-known past as a womanizer, or, you know, I guess we could affectionately refer to it as a ladies' man. But, you know, I've been in the kind of modelling and acting entertainment industry for many years, and I've seen a lot of those types of guys, and you know, like fuck boys and stuff like that, and some of them are really, you know, creepy and gross. You know, it's not just like, oh, women are just throwing themselves at him and da da da. Like it's not always like that. I mean, yes, there are many women who will, but sometimes, you know, when they want someone, like obviously they're going after certain women who have multiple options and maybe might not be so quick to throw themselves at his feet. So they can be gross, like they can be creepy, like they can be coercive, you know, they can be in a situation with a woman that they think is consensual, but the woman doesn't feel like it's consensual, and maybe she made it clear that she wasn't up for stuff, but eventually relented because she knew that she wasn't going to be able to fight against somebody who's like twice her size, like a man is. So you know, hearing it, I was just like, okay, probably might have some truth to it. Again, but I do find the timing to be a bit suspicious, because he's obviously, and I posted this. I'm actually just going to read what I posted on my Facebook. I'm not really surprised to hear Russell is a creep. I've known ladies' men during my time, and they're mostly just creeps. And after all, this is a man who's, oh, I forgot to mention this. This is a man who's confessed in his own autobiography to spitting in a stripper's face, non-consensually of course, whilst he was still inside her after she complained about not coming during their sexual encounter, not having an orgasm. orgasm. So it stands to reason he may have far worse things he's not willing to publicly admit. And of course, guys like that assume that a woman has given consent if she eventually relents to his incessant demands, being obviously weaker and not standing much of a chance of fighting back. So of course he's going to claim all the experiences were consensual. However, I do find the timing curious. At a time when he's becoming more and more anti-establishment and really starting to name those responsible for recent psyops, such as the COVID pandemic and the WEF or Great Reset, and his audience growing in numbers, it seems weirdly suspicious that they bring all this out now. Seems like Russell is no longer in the club. And if you ever wondered why more don't speak out, it's because of reasons like this. Most have way more dirt on them than this. So I think that about sums up my views. Like, I think that basically, yeah, like this is why so many celebs stay stum about everything that's been happening and things that they know. Because, you know, a lot of the time to join the club, you will have to do certain things. You know, those who've researched secret societies like the Freemasons, the Order of Skull and Bones, Council of Foreign Relations, you know, many of these actually start as like fraternities in like Ivy League universities, and then become like they're feeders to like feeder groups, fraternities, I guess, into secret societies like, you know, Bohemian Grove or whatever. So the hazing that they do in some of these fraternities, and I believe sororities as well, is, you know, it's like a tip of the iceberg. It's kind of like the public face of what they do in some of these secret societies, the initiations that they have. And the initiations that they have are basically for the purpose of blackmail. Like, we will reveal to you our secret teachings, our esoteric teachings that will help you manifest great abundance and success, and you'll be part of this network that all work together and help each other achieve massive success on a world stage in return for your loyalty, your complicity, and your silence on certain things, okay? So that's how things operate. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that Russell Brand was ever in that particular club or a member of any secret society. I don't know if he was or not. I did have a dream, though. I had a dream a couple of years ago that both David Icke and Russell Brand were, was it in the White Brotherhood or just a particular secret society? I think, you know, Freemasons or something, I don't know. That they were both in the same group. Sorry, I thought I'd finish recording, but it hadn't. So, you know, take that what you will. I'm not saying that my dreams are like the arbiter of truth, but might be pointing to something. I think that, who was it? Stu the Wanderer. I don't know if you follow him. I haven't followed his stuff recently, so I don't know what he's posting. If you'll say like he's a flat earther now or something. But he did do an interesting video a couple of years ago. It was like at the height of the lockdowns and stuff, talking about Russell Brand and why he believes that Russell Brand is a shill. And he talked specifically about the ritual during the, I don't know which one it was. It might have been 2012, the Olympics in London, where they had basically all these children in hospital beds, and then they had a figure of death above it, and they were talking about how it was essentially like predictive programming prophesying the pandemic, which I'm not really 100% sold on. Like, why children in the beds? Because it was, you know, it targeted elderly people, not really children. I mean, it would be truly horrifying if there was something that attacked children, but you know, that, take that what you will. And then he also pointed that there was this was really interesting, there was like a bus or something, and Russell Brand was on it playing the child catcher, but in the sequence that Russell Brand performed in, I'll see if I can get a bit of footage, if it will allow me to use it. If not, just maybe I'll post a link, or you can just search it yourself, where he's being the child catcher, but he's catching adults and putting them in the bus. I think it was a bus. And so they were saying that this symbolic representation of how he had been chosen and picked to play this role of collecting all the awakening adults. Hang on, sorry guys, I didn't realize that it had defocused. So he was basically collecting all the awakening adults, which I thought was really interesting. That kind of resonated with me a little bit. But you know, I'm not saying that necessarily he's been picked by the cabal or the Illuminati to play that role. It could be even deeper than that. It could be like a divine synchronicity, like he's been picked by God even to play that role. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. You can decide how you feel about that. But somebody commented on this, and I thought, well, firstly somebody said he's buddies with Yuval Noah Harari, who I believe is a transhumanist. But you know, I don't think that necessarily has to mean anything, because you know, I know people, you know, there's people in my family who think that our only hope of survival is to like merge with AI. Like I have a member of my family who's like a cousin who's actually like studying at university like AI and what's the word? Like it's actually medical application of, you know, chips in the brain and stuff like that, which obviously I don't agree with at all. But he's a sovereign individual who can do what he wants. Everybody has to make their own free will choice, and I'll still be civil with him at family gatherings. And we actually had a really interesting conversation talking about that, and I said in no uncertain terms why I think that merging with AI is satanic or demonic, and I explained why. And he was actually pretty open to it. Like he's not like super well versed on spirituality, but he was very curious. He's young still, obviously he's at university, so you know, I have many other friends who I don't share the same like political views with, or like, you know, lots of my friends eat meat. Like y'all know that I'm a vegan, so I can be friends with people who I don't ideologically agree with on lots of things. You know, I've got members of my family who took the, I can still be cool with them. Like I can be cool with anyone as long as you're not like a absolute like psychopath doing like evil things. I just think that some people can be a bit brainwashed on certain topics, and if I feel like they are malevolent or have nefarious intentions with the things that they believe, then obviously I wouldn't be friends with them. But I think that some people are just a little bit brainwashed, not necessarily brainwashed, or they just don't know what you know because they haven't had the experiences that you've had. So, you know, we don't all have to agree on everything, you know. Let's give each other grace. But again, I'm not super familiar with Yuval Noah Harari's views on things. So maybe this guy is like really, really a lot worse than I realise. I haven't really listened to him. Some of my friends who are in the industry, like awake within the industry, said that they didn't like him at all. Somebody described him as sleazy and presumptuous. What else? Somebody else said that they met him. I met him twice. It was very intense and destabilizing, so she didn't like him either. But Clark Shine basically commented, they've got plenty of dirt on him, I'm sure. It's a little threat since he's getting pretty mouthy. So that's interesting. It could be interesting. That's like a warning, like shut up, like you're talking too much shit, and we'll unleash everything. Like just stay quiet. So might be interesting to watch how he behaves moving forward. But yeah, I'm not. I've never paid too much attention to what Russell Brand is saying. For me, he's just a little bit too mainstream. And so I just think that what he's going to be saying is going to be a bit mainstream, even though he is talking about, you know, the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset, which I think is great, because obviously he has a, you know, a lot of people will call him like a tinfoil hat, but so the people I listen to are, you know, going way, way deeper into like much more esoteric avenues that the average person would just say is just completely nutty, because that's how you learn stuff. I'm sorry, like I'm not gonna, like if I'm just looking at what the mainstream conversation is, then I just feel like you're not really expanding in your views on things. So yeah, and then what else did I want to talk about? So yes, Mexican Congress with the alien bodies. So, you know, okay, look, I don't know much about greys. I will say that. I haven't done much research on greys. I think like the most foremost authority on greys might be Bashar, and something about that trance channeling stuff just, you know, I don't like it. It doesn't resonate with me. I don't find it to be, I don't think it's a safe practice. It's a little bit new agey, false lighty. I'm not, you know, I'm not saying that he's, you know, obviously I understand that he's actually channeling. Like, I do believe that channeling is a real thing. I just don't think it's safe, and I don't think any benevolent races would be speaking through a human channel. It's, yeah. Like, I would never allow a being to just take over my body and speak through me. So, you know, like, I mean, I have a friend who does trance channeling. I have no problem with him. You know, it's just, for me, I just don't, like, I don't trust 100% the information that comes through his channel, so that's why I don't listen to it that much. But I know that he's talked a lot about the history of the greys and humans, and, you know, the hybridization that happened between the greys and the humans. So I might just start listening to him a little bit more, just so that I can get some more bigger picture on what might be going on. But my initial first response is it might be fake. Like, the first day the bodies looked a bit fake, but again, I'm not super familiar with greys. Secondly, I do think that maybe this might be, you know, a lot of people have been talking about Project Blue Beam for a couple of years. If you don't know what that is, it's basically where they stage an alien invasion. It's like the next big psyop, the next Hegelian dialectic, the next problem, reaction, solution, you know, much like 9/11, you know, they create a problem, everybody has a reaction, and then they come in with the solution. So, you know, the theory is that Project Bluebeam, and there is evidence to support that Project Bluebeam is a very real psyop that they have been planning, that they would stage an alien invasion to panic everybody so that they could bring in a big one world government and come in as these like savior protectors and going, don't worry, we'll take care of you, just give us all your rights and civil liberties, and we'll make sure that the bad aliens don't get you. So it could be, this could be the beginnings of, you know, Project Bluebeam. They could be, you know, gearing up to stage a fake alien invasion. Or my intuitive hunch, I could be wrong about this, and I could change my opinion about this when I come across more information, but I think that they might be trying to get ahead of very real disclosure that might be about to happen. I think that the white hats might be about to make a move through the emergency broadcast system and disclose basically what the cabal have been up to for such a long time, and disclose kind of alien or ET involvement with the cabal for many years, and they're trying to get ahead of that. But I don't know if I 100% believe that. It's just a theory that I have. But again, you know, I've not been following it too closely, but I did kind of want to weigh in. I wanted to say something about it because obviously that's something that we talk about here, and it's happening in Mexico, which I think is cool because I'm in Mexico. But yeah, I'm open to other people's theories about what they think is going on there, or if it's just real and this is just actual disclosure that's actually happening. I mean, it could also just be that. And actually I did think that at first, but then when I saw the bodies, I was just like, that looks so fake. But yes, yeah. So